everyone. You're listening to Castbitten, a Dungeon Synth podcast, and I'm the host, Trev. And I'm just so fortunate today to be joined from Tony from Chanterelle. In their own words, Chanterelle provides wild melodies plucked from the forest floor. And that really just rings true as you listen to their music. They're super kind, and they'll be providing a new song off of an upcoming release. So new that even I haven't heard it. I'm going to hear it as I add it in post, but I imagine it's great. I imagine it's so good. So yeah, hello Tony, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Trev.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on. I'm just gonna forego my notes here. Can we talk a little bit about this new release? I don't know what you're able to say at this point, but what can you say to get people hyped on it?
Yeah, it's going to be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. We're waiting on tape dubs right now. Um, excuse me. It's called Bioluminescence. It's a little bit of a departure from some of my earlier stuff, just in production, if not in like tone. I mostly recorded it live with an old Casio tone, just like with the built-in drum machine. I just ran it through a reverb pedal and played it all in live for the most part, like 85% of it. Whereas a lot of my other stuff has been kind of in the box.
Right. Wow. Is this going to be a full-length release?
Yep, it'll be a full length. Full, what is it? Like 25 minutes on a side, I think.
Oh, awesome. And it sounds like the digital release and physical release are going to like line up at the same time.
Yeah, I usually like to do that if I can help it. Just I don't want
It's very
somebody to buy the
professional.
digital one and not, get a tape with it if they wanted.
Right. I think that's a good way to do it. It's difficult to coordinate, but
Hmm.
listeners really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the name is Bioluminescent or Bioluminescence.
Yeah, bioluminescence.
Okay. So that kind of fits into what I was hoping to talk about. So I want to talk about your name, Chanterelle, first. So it totally made it challenging to do research for the interview because every time I Google something, I just get pictures of mushrooms. But
I know what you're talking about.
it's fun though. It's such a fun approach. So, like, my first instinct is to just ask what inspired that name, but even more, and especially with this new album name, it seems like as you've made releases, you've kind of become more focused on this like mushroom and natural world angle where
Hmm.
your first release, which I want to get more in depth in later, that was more focused on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, whereas your more recent ones, Earthly Delights and Tales from the Forest Floor, and now Bioluminescence, you think of the type of things that the name Chanterelle conjures up. Yeah, I was just curious if you could talk about the name a little bit and how maybe the name influences how you make your music and things like that.
Yeah, so the name came after the music in the beginning. Um, I had recorded that first album and a bunch of other stuff that didn't make it on there as well. And I was looking for a name, and I was talking with my wife and some of my music friends about it, like what am I going to call it? Um, and I was just going through some books I had on the shelf. I have a lot of my wife and I are both mushroom hunters. We love hiking, outdoors things.
Oh,
So I was looking through like some field guides to find some weird Latin names of things. And I picked up the mushroom one, and most of the mushroom names I found were just a little too gross. Um, and then I was like, oh, I'll just call it Chanterelle because I looked it up and it didn't look like there was anything really similar where somebody had named it Chanterelle. And it's,
nice.
good
Yeah.
evocative name. It gives me something to play with.
Yeah, and you're right. Mushroom names can sometimes be like a little, I don't know, unappealing. Chanterelle's a very classy choice. It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, if the music was different, it might be more appropriate, but it's a little delicate for stinkhorn or like you know death
Yeah,
angel fungus or
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah. Delicate's a good word for it. I feel like you've got like you capture this really big emotional range. It's a lot of times more positive than some dungeon synth can be, but then you get like the melancholy sound and you get the dark sound, and
Hmm.
um, I don't know. Getting that wide range is pretty interesting to me, and in my experience, it's hard to do. It's especially under Dungeon Synth, it's just difficult to mix it up and to get the happy and the sad and everything in between. Is that something you go for? Do you try to set out to write like different emotional angles on your songs? Does it just happen?
It seems like it might be kind of the other way around. Like I just will have music that needs to come out, and sometimes it'll work for Chanterelle, sometimes it won't work at all. Sometimes it'll be in the middle, and I'll kind of shoehorn it into a Chanterelle track. Um, so it's not something I necessarily consciously work at, um, but I do just like to. I make all kinds of other music too, so a lot of times there'll be things of
Interesting.
different genres or varieties, or I'll just come up with a melody or a chord progression, and then what can I do to make this a Chanterelle track? If I need some more.
Need to shroom it up a little.
Yeah.
Right. That it's interesting. Do you have like other active projects that you release in? I looked around online and couldn't really tie anything to Chanterelle.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
I've I record a lot of music, just like sketches for myself, and I do a lot of writing of different varieties. I also do like a folk singer act. I play guitar and sing, and I played in a bunch of bands and everything. So I've had other live projects, but not really any recording projects.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I feel like a lot of people that make this like fun instrumental dungeon synth type of stuff, they're doing other stuff like that. They're doing the folk singer thing, or some like harder electronic stuff, and just just talking the genre. Some of that gets pushed to the wayside, but yeah, musicians are varied and they have varied interest and make different types of music. It's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't sit down and just do one thing all the time. There's always, constantly new ideas for whatever coming through, and I got to kind of just roll with the fancies when they come.
Yeah. What came first, if it's okay to ask? Were you doing the songwriter thing and then got into the keyboard, or
Yeah, so
yeah, what was the flow there?
this has been a fairly recent thing that I've been doing. Like I started playing guitar when I was a teenager.
Yep.
I was into like rock and roll and everything, and I kind of dove into the blues and like traditional music influences of a lot of rock music, and then I just went down that rabbit hole really hard. I started playing banjo and harmonica,
Oh,
doing like traditional folk things, and that has been my main focus for a while. I also sang in a country band for a while, so that
whoa.
I've kind of got like a double musical life. But that's been my main focus for most of my adult life, and then this has been something that just kind of happened, and then the reaction was so good. I was like, well, this is fun. People like it. I guess I better keep doing it.
Man, that's so cool to hear. I feel like a lot of artists have a similar thing happen. So would you say that this like started out as a side project, but ended up getting a lot more success? So you moved a little focus on it, or was it that it was more fun to make? You moved some focus on it. I don't know what happened there.
I would say it's a combination of both of those things. Like it started out just as not as a joke necessarily, but as like an amusement. Um,
Yes,
I
yes, I
started during
100% know what you mean.
yeah, like during quarantine last year, I would just record some of these things for to play to my friends or to play at my D&D games or whatever, and I had no idea that Dungeon Synth was even a thing that existed, and it was just I was calling it, Tony's Dungeon Music. And then all my friends seemed to like it, and I was like, well, maybe I should like see if there's this on Bandcamp, because I know there's all kinds of weird niche things there. And then
Yeah.
turned out there was, and I was like, well, I might as well throw it up there and see what
Wow.
happens.
What a what a way to get introduced, to make the music first and then learn about the genre.
Yeah, it was really weird.
I feel like that'll contribute to a unique sound though. There's like no influences of the major players of the genre. So I can see how that would work.
Yeah, it was all fresh and new to me.
Yeah.
It was exciting. I didn't have any preconceived notions about what it was supposed to sound like.
Yeah, I had a pretty similar experience. I was just playing D&D, and for me, the D&D friends kind of we would throw around Dungeon Synth, and then I got this computer to more record songwriter stuff and to learn virtual instruments. Just kind of thought, hey, what if I tried out some of this dungeon synth? Wouldn't that be funny to send my friends? And here we are
And then
now
here we are. Yep.
talking synth on the podcast.
Funny how that happens, huh?
Yeah. So you mentioned like the albums are being met with success. I kind of want to talk about that success. So Earthly Delights is like it's literally the number one Dungeon Synth album of the year on the Reddit page right now. I
I
don't know
have
if
been
you're
keeping a
aware of
close
that.
eye on that.
Keeping a close eye. And it's funny with smaller communities how that can happen. Like, how does that feel? Have you noticed? I don't know. Like, I know there's a ton of slightly different metrics to track releases with, almost
hmm
overwhelmingly. Have you noticed those like spiking up since these polls have come out?
Yeah,
What are you
like I
thinking?
said, I've kind of been keeping an eye on it, and every time that one of those posts gets made and I'm mentioned on it, my listens on Bandcamp go way up for a couple of
Wow,
days.
that's awesome.
Which is, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose of the thing too. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice way to like share the high points of the community. And I feel like there's a ton of people, even if like I think this most recent poll had like 7 people contributing, but I think there's way more readers than that. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I
even
would
just
think so.
getting a few, right? Yeah, getting a few recommendations is going to be a ton of eyeballs and ears on you.
Yeah, and I usually try not to read too much into, you know, best ofs or, number one of the year or anything like that. But if there's a place that I respect their opinion on this subject, I think Reddit is a pretty reliable source. So that feels
Yeah,
pretty good.
totally. Yeah, I imagine that's great. Um, does that like kind of compel you to make more music or to be more diligent with your music, or you just continuing along the same path and just happy to have a little more attention as you do it?
Uh, yeah, it definitely spurred me to record my new album that's going to be coming out. I actually recorded it over the summer. Um,
Hmm.
and it definitely inspired me a little bit. I was like, oh well, people really like it. I should like make sure I do a good one, and just work harder at it, and maybe try to
Sure.
adjust the sound a little bit because people seem to like the sound, but also there are other elements that I feel like I was missing out because I was, somewhat ignorant of them before. So it's made me think about it in a, I don't know, not a more professional way, but just to try to focus on it in a different way.
Sure. And I think I can see that in Tales from the Forest Floor, which is your most recent. I think that was March of this year.
hmm
It feels like there's a lot of new elements in that one that weren't really as highlighted. There's, I would say, like a wider variety of instruments, maybe like different methods of writing it. If you agree, maybe I'm totally wrong there.
No,
Would
I
you
would
say
agree
that?
with that.
Okay, yeah. Would you say that's a response of like you said, getting into the genre, finding out it exists, even and going along there, or was that just a direction that you kind of logically wanted to follow?
Well, that was kind of an outgrowth of that, I suppose. Trying
Okay.
to like find a more of a focus, like a not quite a narrative element, but like a concept, something with some continuity to it, um, like thematically.
Right. Yeah, and that album is so good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I just a bit ago I sent it to all my friends saying check it out, and I tried to say, hey, here's a song to check out first, but I just couldn't pick one. They're all so good.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
I like that one the best of all of mine, and it hasn't gotten very much attention, which is fine. But yeah, I would have thought that that one would have gotten more attention than Earthly Delights. I guess because of having a physical tape, it makes a difference. But that
Hmm.
one,
I can see that. Yeah.
Tales from the Florist Floor, is my favorite.
Wow. I can totally see that. Um, and there's something to say for such small margins. If 2 people recommend Earthly Delights, then that's like half of the votes. That's a huge portion online. So now a ton of
Very
people are
true.
looking at it. Sometimes it's just like the randomness of small community recommendations.
Yeah, just
But
like
yeah,
what
I
happens to get passed around.
right, no control over it. But I think Tails is just so good, and I imagine that it was very I don't know, fun to make in a unique way. Do you
Oh
feel
yeah, I had
like
a great time.
bioluminescence? Oh, okay, yeah. Do you feel like bioluminescence is gonna be a little more in that wheelhouse or something totally different? What are you thinking there?
It's gonna have some melodies and themes that are a little more in that whimsical kind of
Okay.
territory. But the feel is going to be very different from Tales from the Forest Floor. It's
Okay.
more lo-fi, I guess would be a good way to put it. It's a little more minimalist, a little more lo-fi, some harsher sounds. Um, yeah, so similar in the melodies and the themes, but kind of a different direction.
Okay. You mentioned like a large portion of bioluminescence is like recorded live, and I know that's not totally new. Some of the tracks on Earthly Delights, which you mentioned in the description, is somewhat of a compilation of older tracks along with some newer tracks. But
Hmm.
some of the ones on there are were taken from a live album that you put out. I think the tracks are "Crossing the Footbridge" and "An Autumn Wind"
Oh yeah,
off
from
of
Forest
Forest
Idols.
Idols.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this sort of like doing it live, I think improvised like keys is what was going on there. Isn't totally new to you.
No, that's
Although
a thing that
these
I've been
you
doing for a while.
okay, yeah, and you seem like super solid on. I can see it makes sense when you explain having like a wide musical background you've been playing out for a while. Is improv's tough and it's tough to make it sound coherent, and you do a good job on there.
Oh, thank you.
Uh,
That
yeah, for
actually came
sure.
out of I had a like hobby for a while of just putting on silent movies and accompanying them by
Oh
myself
my
like in real
gosh.
time, and that was what inspired that. I kind of figured it out a little bit, and I was getting to where I could do it convincingly, and then it's like I should just record this and then just have the album.
Whoa. That's beautiful. That's so nice.
A good way to spend a winter evening.
Absolutely. Especially, yeah, you're upper Midwest, so I can imagine just like a snowy day locked in doing that. That sounds wonderful. Get some
Yeah,
hot
just
cocoa.
some cup of hot coffee and the cat sleeping on the back of the keyboard looking out at the snow.
Oh, that's wonderful. One thing I was curious about, I can hear some difference in the Earthly Delights version. Is that just like you've mixed it and mastered it a little different, or did you re-record those live takes for Earthly Delights?
No, I didn't re-record them. I think what I did was I bounced them all onto one track that was the running length of the side, and I think I did a little bit of like limiting or mastering or EQing, um,
Okay.
and changing the levels a little bit to get everything to play nice with each other. So that's probably what you're hearing. It was the
Okay.
same piece of music, the same wave file, but just
Right.
edited to make more sense with the others.
Yeah, and it does sound like a step up in professionalism on the Earthly Delights version. It's like just a little clearer, a little nicer. I don't know. I think that it fits well.
Oh, thank you.
Could you kind of talk about that decision to compile some older release tracks with some newer stuff when you're making Earthly Delights? And I don't know. I'm curious about what spurred that decision and what would make you want to include an older track or not include it. What was going on there in your head?
So just before the end of the year, the people at Neverwood Records got a hold of me and said that they wanted to do a tape with me. And I
Oh
didn't
wow.
have very much new material at the time. And I was kind of talking with them and, what can we do? Should I do like the A side will be the original EP and the B side will be Forest Idols? Or do I do like just a compilation? And they suggested a compilation since it was going to be a physical tape. And then I kind of ran with
Hmm.
that and, if I'm going to do you know, a compilation, I should put a couple new ones on there because people are going to spend money on it that might have already bought the digital one. I want to give them something new. And I kind of wanted to go with the theme of like the A side was like the more dungeony stuff, and the B side was the more whimsical, foresty, fantasy ambiance. And that was the titles and the moods. I kind of made it so that they would fit with the rest of them on that side. So that was where the decisions came from about what old ones were going to be on there.
Oh, that's really thoughtful of you. That's like a lot of thought into making it how you wanted.
Yeah, I have a notebook that half the pages are just me writing down, what tracks were going to go where and scratching it out because it
Sure,
was the
yeah.
wrong time or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if non-musicians think about how particular that can be and how much work can go into it.
Oh yeah, just sitting there thinking so hard about what am I
Just
going to
what's
do?
the
How's
most logical flow.
yeah.
When you were doing the original Tony's Dungeon synth, you mentioned kind of a distinction between the side A is dungeony, side B is whimsical. Was the original music the more dungeony stuff or the more whimsical stuff, or was
I
it just a
was
free for all?
I was kind of doing both. To be
Okay,
honest, there was the stuff I would do improvising on the keyboard without anything else, and then
right.
that was the kind of whimsical stuff, and then there was the darker, a little more distorted kind of harsher sounds where I'd have like samples of people talking that I reversed and like lots of reverb on the drums and everything. So
Yeah,
there
a
was a
lot of
little
just
bit of
playing
both of it
around.
going on.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess at that point, maybe it's a neat time to talk about the Necromancer. Um,
Oh yeah.
I just yeah, can you just share anything that's so cool to me to do this keys dungeon synthy sound, but it's really influenced by, as I mentioned earlier, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
what
so
was going on there?
the Necromancer, actually, I mentioned playing to silent movies earlier. I recorded that along with the 1910 Edison silent film version of Frankenstein,
Wow.
um, which is only like 12 minutes long or however long that track is. But I recorded that as the backup music for that, and then I put that on my YouTube channel with the video. And
Oh no way.
I figured I'd port it over to Bandcamp just to fill it out because I didn't have much on there yet.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of lived there ever since. But yeah, that there is a video on my YouTube channel of the 1910 Frankenstein with me playing that.
Oh, that's too cool. That's definitely something something worth checking out. There's not always I don't know, the visual component can really add stuff to things like that, especially something that like arrangement wise is a little more minimal, like if it's strictly keys there. Um,
Yeah, it would be
Visually
hard
being
to
fleshed
sit
out.
down and listen to it, I think, just by itself without having at least a mental image or, some type
Yeah,
of component
I
with it.
enjoyed it. I listened to it audio only, but I do see what you mean. It'll be more. It'll tell more of a story if you got the visual with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you thought about releasing the other silent film stuff that you've done?
Uh, yeah, but a lot of it's not all that great. um, Yeah,
Fair
I did
enough.
one for
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, which is also on my YouTube channel.
Oh,
And it's been
cool.
something I'm wanting to come back to, but I just haven't had the time or the motivation.
Yeah.
But in the
And then
future, I would like to do some more of that.
right. Yeah, I think that people would like to see it. And like I said, like I was looking around and wasn't aware of this visual component. So hopefully as word spreads about your music, more people check that out and kind of fall for it. Like
Yeah, I should
dig
probably put a
into it.
link on the Bandcamp page for it.
And to tie it back to bioluminescence, that one you mentioned that's a lot of like improvised stuff. I think you said 75%. Um,
Something
what about
around
the
there.
other something around there? What about the other 25%? What felt like it was worth adding in post?
There was a couple tracks that I had already recorded that weren't quite ready for Tales from the Forest Floor and maybe were a little outside of the general feel of that one.
Hmm.
They were, mostly mocked up but not fleshed out all the way. And I just thought they kind of fit, and it would be nice to have a little bit of the old sound mixed in there as well. More of the in the box kind of cleaner production, um, just
Okay.
to just to kind of set it off a little bit. It was, I wanted to put them on Tales from the Forest Floor, but they weren't ready, and I wanted to get it out, and so they found their
Okay.
home on the next one.
I think I might have had the wrong idea then. So when you say this roughly 75-25 split, it's more three-fourths of the song are the improvised, and then one-fourth of the songs on the album are the like more produced ones. It's not each song just has some extra elements over it.
Correct. It's there's just
Okay,
two
okay.
tracks that were older and recorded in a different way, and then the rest of them are mostly live.
Okay, great. That's really interesting. Oh man, I'm so excited for that. And it's funny to think the like I mentioned, I haven't heard the new song you're gonna send over, so the audience have a better idea than I do of what it'll sound
Yeah,
like.
hopefully you like it.
Yeah, I imagine they love it. They probably haven't even gotten to the interview yet. They're just replaying the first couple minutes, jamming out. um, One thing that I want to ask about Tales from the Forest Floor, it really stands out to me. It seems like this one, there's a lot of, I guess you could call them folk stories referencing it. You've got these track titles referencing the unseelie fairies or the lob lie by the fire,
Hmm.
which I had to Google to see what that was, but um, yeah, I don't know. Can you talk about that? Is that something that you are seeking out as you're making the album, or were these kind of folk stories always like lying under the surface, and you're just now like being more direct with the titles there?
Yeah, I would think the latter. That I'm kind of a fairyland and fairy tale nerd. So anything having to do with fairies or like folk tales of goblins or hobgoblins or anything like that, I really enjoy that. And I wanted to do something that kind of brought that out to the front. I guess some of the more, like you said, folktale elements um, of the fantasy realm.
Yeah, that's really fitting with the sound you have on Tails.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely fits the like the fairies and hobgoblins as you said.
Hmm.
What are some of the like I guess are you just more influenced by the general themes of folk tales, like these characters and situations, or are there some specific ones that are really fundamental to you?
Yeah, I guess I would say it's more of just the general feel and ambiance
Okay.
of them. I don't know that there's any real particular ones that stand out. I mean, any of the Grimm fairy tales. I have a couple old like books of
Oh,
English folk
cool.
tales and whatnot, and just I don't know, just the feeling that you get from reading some of those things
Yeah,
really like hits me in a way. I don't know. I
there's
don't know
nothing
that there's
like
any in
it.
particular that I like are fundamental or anything though.
Okay, I can see that. Um, with these, I kind of glossed over it because I had so much I wanted to talk about. But you mentioned being a forager, like you and your wife forage for mushrooms and things like that.
Hmm.
Do
Yeah,
you
that's
feel like? Oh,
sorry, go
go
ahead.
on. No, yeah,
We're too Midwestern.
too Midwestern,
Yeah,
right?
that's something we've been getting into more in the past couple of years.
Oh, great. Does that influence your music even in a like a subconscious way? I mean, obviously the project's named after it, so at least a little bit. But are you out there picking mushrooms and thinking about, oh, maybe this melody makes me feel that way? Or when you're clicking and clacking on the computer, do you try to get in the mindset when you're out in the woods foraging, or is
yeah,
that a bit of a stretch to think?
I think it's influenced it in a way. Just all the natural music that is out there in the world already. When
I
you're out
see.
doing a
Yeah,
silent activity in the woods or whatever. Yeah, I think things come to you. You get inspired in certain ways, and I have like my own ideas of what sounds like this situation. So it's not like I'm necessarily hearing it, but I'll get an association, and I'll think, oh, this melody I wrote sounds like that. Kind of, I'm feeling it now. So then kind of bundle that together, if that makes sense.
yeah, that makes total sense. That's a nice answer. With the foraging, this is a little off topic, but we're having fun here. We're past the half hour mark.
Yeah.
What do you what do you look into when you're foraging? Like, are you? So I've never done it, but a lot of people like in my life have done it. Are you going out hoping like, oh, I hope I find chanterelle. I hope I find this mushroom, or is it more? Let's just see what happens. I don't know.
Well, I've done a little bit of both, but We actually don't really hunt chanterelles at all. I don't know if they're around here or not. I've never seen them around
Okay.
here. Mostly morels. Living in Michigan, morels are the big
Yeah.
one, and we definitely will go out looking for morels when it's time. And
Those can be tough to find, right?
oh yeah, yeah, they can be difficult. It's kind of a I don't know. They like pop up overnight, and you just got to kind of unfocus
Yeah.
your eyes and know what you're looking for. But we'll,
Okay.
look for oysters or pheasant backs or whatever when it's the right season, because usually they don't overlap too much. Sometimes they do, but
Yeah.
usually I'll go out looking for something like fiddlehead ferns, or come up first, and then after
Yeah.
something else is ready, the morels will come on, and then at the end of that, you'll get the pheasant backs and that kind of thing.
Right. I've heard where I am in Wisconsin, people can be a little secretive about, especially their morel spots. If they have one,
Oh, absolutely.
they keep them close. Do you have, Tony's secret spot, anything like that, or
Oh,
is it a
there's a
little
couple of them.
more?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so. That's funny. That's so exciting.
That's half the fun, is being secretive about it,
Is
even if you're
hunting out, keeping you tricks.
yeah, even if you're not trespassing or whatever, just being
Oh my
sneaky is half
gosh.
the fun.
Oh, I didn't think about trespassing. Is sneaking onto someone's land, is that part of it? I don't know if you'll get.
Not for
uh,
me. I don't do that just because it makes me nervous, but
that's
that is a
fair.
thing that a
Yeah.
lot of people do.
Right. Yeah, yeah, adds up. um so thinking back, you mentioned you're a little more particular about the instruments that you're using on Bioluminescence, and maybe it's a production thing, maybe it's a tech thing. I notice a different like overall sound on Tales from the Forest Floor versus like your older, maybe a little um I don't know word for it. Like your keys stuff has a different feel. Were you recording on different tech there? Is it all straight into a workstation? What's going on?
Yeah, both of those were all straight into the DAW, just virtual instruments. I think I had discovered some different instruments by the time I got to Tales from the Forest Floor, and I had been able to figure out, like, these are the plugins that I want to use all the time. I want to use like this reverb, this EQ, and these are the settings. And I was able to kind of get a more cohesive set of what I did it for Chanterelle, and just be
Hmm.
a little more consistent about it, and found some different, better instruments that did what I wanted more, that kind of thing.
Okay. Are you using MIDI for most of this then?
Oh yeah, it's all MIDI. It's either from my Casio digital piano as MIDI controller. I've got like a little 25 key desktop one that I use.
Okay, awesome. Do you find yourself like recording a take and sticking with it, or I feel like with MIDI, for me, there's a pressure to get it perfect because you're allowed to like make minute changes. How do you feel? Do you just stick with it, or are you,
No, I'm
uh,
kind of a tweaker. I like to mess around with
yeah, a
it,
little
and
neurotic about it?
yeah, definitely. I'd like to, I'll always write it out on paper first, and then I'll play it in, and then I'll see, does it sound right, and then tweak it
Whoa.
and all kinds of other stuff just to get it, exactly how I heard it.
Yeah. Do you find yourself even writing in MIDI ever, or you mentioned writing on paper? Will it? Is it just the tweaking is done to the MIDI?
I do sometimes write just in MIDI, but I I try not to, just because I want to keep myself sharp. Um,
Sure.
just like, it's easy and I get that and it's fine, but I like to know that I still remember how to write coherent sheet music.
Yeah, yeah, and especially it seems like a lot. Like you have an identity as a keys player, so like you said, maybe want to keep that sharp.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I just want to make sure my mind's working, and if I go
yeah,
to write something down when I don't have a keyboard, I want to remember to, you know,
right.
make sure I
I'm
know how to do it.
I am absolutely guilty of if I, verse one melody, I paste it over into verse two and then rearrange it from there to get some changes.
Oh, and there's
Sometimes,
there's
not all
nothing
the
wrong with
time.
that.
No, yeah, it's different strokes. But yeah, I totally see wanting to hone that craftsmanship.
Yeah, I paid all that money for music school, so I might as well get some use out of it.
What music school was that? Like a bachelor's degree or just lessons for a long time? What's going on there?
I dropped out halfway through my bachelor's. It was just a small
Awesome.
college in West Michigan, but I was majoring in French horn, um,
Whoa.
which is great, and I love playing the horn. But it was more of an excuse to just learn everything else about music and not so much about playing the horn, which is why I ended up dropping out.
Right. Do you find like do you have any compulsion to play French horn on your recordings here to add it in, or is that just not something on your mind?
I've thought about it. I'm not. Well, my chops are pretty rusty right now. I'm actually working on a new. I'm in the pre-planning stages of a new recording, which I might put out as Chanterelle. I might put it out as something different because it's going to be a little different. Where I want to make use of the French horn and my cornet and some of my
Hmm.
other physical instruments. So that'll be something I'll be doing in the future, hopefully, if this works out the way I want it to. But whether it's as Chanterelle or not, I can't really say at the moment.
We'll just have to keep our eyes out.
Yeah.
Do you find using like virtual horn instruments a pain since you have experience with real horns, or not so much?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know what I want it to sound like, and I
Yeah.
just, my fingers can't do it on the keyboard, with even with the mod wheel and automation and everything. It's just like, I'll put something in, I'll think I could play that better, and then I never do. But like I'm not gonna bother with that. I can,
Yeah. Do you have any tips there? You mentioned like mod wheel and automating like with plugins. That's something a lot of dungeon synth artists, they might not have that perspective of playing physical brass instruments.
Hmm.
If you have to doctor up a brass VST, um, do you have like tricks of the trade to get it to sound a little more realistic?
Not any that are really tried and true. I haven't had really good luck with it. I think it's important to remember that the attack is somewhat slower than it would be on obviously like a guitar or a keyboard, because you
Right.
have to get the whole column of air vibrating. So the attack's always going to be a little bit slower, and of course you have the ability to, you know, crescendo get louder, decrescendo get softer, the vibrato and all the things that come along with that. And for the horn, there's also the element of having your hand in the bell, which changes the timbre completely.
Oh
And,
yeah.
whether you're facing a wall or not, because you point it behind you. So there's just so many little minutia. I know somebody knows how to do it, but it's not me.
Do you have like brass instrument VST recommendations to start with?
I've used the free like DSK brass. I used that on the Glittering Caves from Earthly Delights, and it sounds like it's a VST, but it was close enough for what I needed.
Sure.
That's the one that I've had the most experience with.
What about be as secretive as you want if you don't want people to steal the Chanterelle sound, but what about other you mentioned having like narrow down a range of plugins that you use now that you weren't before. Do you have any other like VSTs that you really love or
Yeah,
plugins like you
so
mentioned reverb, things like that?
all of the VSTs that I've used for all of the albums I've recorded have all been free, just like free download ones
Awesome.
from all
Yeah.
over the internet. Um, but yeah, there's a lot I use all the time. There's the Forefront electric piano instrument, which is like it opens a little window and there's nothing to change. It's just the sound, which is great. I love to work
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that one's a big one. That's the bass in Faraway Places, that kind of like clunky 80s synthy sounding electric piano. What are some other ones? The Transistor Drums, which is just like a 808 model that's like pretty
Okay.
lo-fi. I use that a lot for the drum tracks and just like put them through guitar cabinet emulators just to kind of soften them up a little bit.
Oh, that's a good move.
Yeah, I run a lot of stuff through a guitar cabinet emulator or just a speaker emulator,
Yeah.
and just lots of cheap reverb, and don't make it too trebly. Like that's pretty much how I go about it.
Wow.
I
There we
like to mix
go.
everything kind of around the same level, so it makes like I don't know. I always think of it like a soup. There's a bunch of different things floating around, and they're all kind of there, but not one more than the other.
Oh yeah, I love that. Like a soup. That's
Yeah,
great, and that fits the Chanterelle identity, I imagine.
I like to think so.
um, when because it seems like you've mentioned co-releasing the digital release with the tape release is very important to you. Do you do like a different mix and master for that tape release?
I haven't. I just sent all the wave files over to the guys at Neverwood, and gonna. I think they're gonna put them together and send them to the dubber. So I'll
Okay.
just put the ones that I have on my computer, and I'm not sure what they're gonna have. To tell you the truth, if they do something to it, it'll be different. But that's not
Yeah.
something that I did to it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. And stuff like that, I imagine they put out so many releases, and they're so high quality that they would totally know what to do.
Yeah, I trust their judgment generally.
Right.
Well, all
Um
the time, I guess, not generally.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally know what you mean. Since you went to music school, at least for a period of time, I imagine you have like a fairly strong theory background. Does that come into play a lot when you're writing?
Yeah, I like to
Music
think
theory, that
so, at
is.
least.
Okay, yeah.
Music
How?
theory is like a big kind of a hobby for me. I just want to
Yes.
know all of it all the time.
Yes, I'm totally the same way. I know some people shy away from it, but for me, it's just beyond the point of being useful, even. Just, I want
Oh
to
yeah,
accumulate stupid
I
knowledge.
just got to know.
Gotta know. Yeah.
Now, that's the fun
Um,
part for me is playing around with you know, different theoretical aspects or composition
right.
concepts or
Yeah.
anything like that.
I feel like you can hear that, especially in your more piano centered music. In Earthly Delights, it's so rich. Like the key parts, the chord progressions. It's definitely got a lot of flavor that isn't always there in the genre, and like that's something that I really appreciate with
Oh,
it.
that's good to hear. That's kind of something I was trying to put across, I guess. Um,
Nice.
I don't know. I like to, you got all those tools in there. You might as well pull them out when you can use them.
Yeah. Are there any parts of theory that you're really drawn to, or are you a big chord progression guy, a big timbre guy? You just like it all? What's going on there?
In the past couple of years, I've kind of gravitated more and more towards modal theory and modal music.
Excellent.
Like trying to read all the old treatises from back in the like 1600s or whatever about reading Palestrina music, the Gradus ad Parnassum, which is like the standard counterpoint teaching book, which was all modal counterpoint at the time.
Oh
And then up
wow.
to like Miles Davis kind of blue. Love that
Yeah.
stuff. Gustav Holst and Ray Vaughan Williams, they're kind of like early modern symphonic modal music. Just anything that's not necessarily tonal and not
Right.
like atonal is just really interesting to me.
So as you go to write like a modal piece or a modal part of a piece, are you seeped in it enough that it kind of just comes out, or are you very intentional? Like I will write this modally in this way, and then you within those uh, structure, do you write something, or is it a little bit of everything? I don't know.
Well, I think it can be a little bit of both. Like I've sat down to write something like that, like Evening Approaches, which I believe was on Earthly Delights at the end. Um, I wrote that as basically like a not an homage, but it was kind of formulated after uh, what's the name of it? Is it Flamenco Sketches? Miles Davis tune from Kind of Blue, where it's just
Okay.
they hang out in one mode for a minute and then they switch to another related one for the B section and then go back, and it's just kind of a big improvised painting of this mode. So I sat down to do that on intentionally with that one, but also a lot of times the melodies that will come to me when I'm at work or out in the woods or walking around will sometimes be modal in character or could be, and just depends on what it feels like it needs. So yeah, I guess it would be a little bit of both.
Wow. And it sounds like you have a really rich and varied diet of music, and you're not just getting dungeon synth influences as you make the Chanterelle music.
Yeah, some could say
Do and
scatterbrained almost.
no, no. Do your other musical identities bleed in? Your songwriter stuff, your country stuff. For me, like I snatch things from different genres and apply it to dungeon synth. Do you find yourself doing that?
I think to an extent it's inescapable.
Right.
Like I was saying with like modal jazz, that's definitely influenced a lot of the Chanterelle stuff, even though it doesn't sound like jazz at all. Some of the concepts and
Yeah. A lot of times it's if you get influenced by a piece, you can just take one thing and then apply the rest of the dungeon synth suite, and it just sounds like dungeon synth but different.
yeah,
I
you
think.
just you dress it up the right way.
Right, right. Oh,
And
that's
also a
so
lot of
cool.
my like live stuff that I've done, I mostly played bass guitar.
I see.
So having played bass in like country bands, I think has given me a good foundation of like, don't overdo it. This is the foundation, like you need to build up from the
Right.
bottom. I think maybe in a roundabout way, that's kind of been an influence from that.
Ah, that's very, very good lessons to learn. And a lot of that like popular genre music has such good fundamentals that I think can be missed out on within like if you're just steeped in the niche genre without any outside influence.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, I would think.
For sure. Oh, that's so interesting. One thing that I wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk about your cover art. So you're big on this open access cover art, and I like that you always cite where you found it. What's that process like? Like, how do you go and find the stuff? Are you just scouring around, or is there something in mind? If you have a release that you're looking for cover art, do you already have an idea of what the art is going to look like, or do you just wait until something catches your eye?
uh, I think I usually go into it with an idea, and I've gotten most of it from the Smithsonian Open Access, like public domain website, which is a
Hmm.
fantastic resource for all kinds of things. Just because I know that that's legit because it's from the Smithsonian, and I don't want to. I don't know. Not that anybody would probably like file a claim on something like that,
Right.
but I just I'd rather have my bases covered, so I usually get it from there. But I might be
Yeah.
thinking like, I want a print or I want a pencil sketch and I want it to kind of feel this way, or I want a painting. So I'll usually play around with that, and then sometimes the cover art could also influence the title of the piece or whatever.
Oh.
It kind of all happens at the same time. It's like a big, I don't know, like mood board in my head of everything running together, trying to make the perfect like cohesive unit. Whether that
Yeah.
happens or not, I don't know, but in my head, that's the way it is.
Off the top of your head, can you say anything? Any examples of when the art has influenced the title instead of the traditional way around?
I think for Forest Idols, I found that
Oh, I
really
can see
great,
that.
like dark
Yeah.
blue forest painting, and I had already had in mind that it was going to be like the the program, if you will, was going to be like wandering through the woods and stumbling into fairyland and not being able to get back was like the idea. Um, and so I found that really great painting, and I was like, that is the just the color I want. So what can I do to for a name that will fit it? And there's an Edward McDowell piece called Forest Idols, Idylls.
Oh.
And so it was kind of a play on that.
Oh, that's so clever. Um, I feel like the audio experience of the albums really really matches the cover art, especially like Earthly Delights, that has like a very nice clean sound, and I feel like the I don't know, like the stark picture with the muted pretty background, it just works so perfect there. And then Tales from the Forest Floor with the little like denser and more, I don't know,
A little more chaotic.
Chaotic, sure, yeah. Those, is it dancing dryads, something like that? That just
Hmm.
that fits so well.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to hear that because that is something that I spend a lot of time, racking my brain about fitting them together. So I'm
Oh
happy to hear
yeah,
that.
it's nice. It's nice to hear because some stuff like that can be thrown on really quickly. It's nice to hear that it was intentional. To me, I feel like with music and art, I really value intentional choices, and I don't know. It's cool to hear that that's backed up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, well, I'm checking my notes, and I think that I'm starting to run out of steam here. I feel like I'm very caffeinated. I ran through things, but we got a nice dense look into your mind. Do you have anything else that you want to share about your process or what interests you or anything like that?
Hmm. Let's see. I talked about the modal stuff. I talked about the free VSTs. That
Everything
was the
people
two
want to
points I
hear.
wanted to hit, really, I guess.
Right. It's funny. I guess I went so into your non-dungeon synth influences. I never asked what are your dungeon synth influences when you were first getting into the genre. What caught your eye and made you want to be part of it?
I really like Thief. I think that was the first one that caught
Awesome.
my
The
ear.
totally great entry point, I think.
And Dim as well, which I would consider kind of in that same wheelhouse.
For sure.
Just a little, not orchestral, but just kind of, I don't know, less drony and lo-fi and more of a,
Yeah.
you know, there's more going on, I guess, musically,
Right. Yeah.
which I
That
like.
yeah, that's a really good hook into it, and I can see how it would interact with what you've come out with.
Yeah, it kind of validated me to hear stuff like that and be like, oh yeah, like I can do that. That makes sense. That's a thing that people listen to.
Oh, that's nice to hear. That must be reassuring.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
everybody that I've communicated with in this whole community online or whatever has been so nice and just like they're all so excited about helping other people and listening to their music and supporting them. It seems very close knit and I like that.
Yeah, it's insane how positive the community is. It
For such a
really
gloomy
makes me happy to be
sounding
part of it.
genre.
Yeah. So funny. I don't know. Maybe just everyone's used to writing characters for D&D and to making kind of funky outside of music that just come together. It's really
Yeah, it's
nice.
it's like the yes and thing, like if you're
Yeah.
role
Yeah,
playing or
absolutely.
improvising.
Right. Oh, that's so nice. All right. Well, do you have anything? What do you want to plug? What's the best way for you? I guess, obviously your music. It's just chanterelle.bandcamp.com, I believe, right?
That's correct. Yep. And there's a
Yep, spelled
link.
like the mushroom.
Yep, spelled like the mushroom. So if you find a bunch of pictures of mushrooms before me, then you're on the right track. Um, there's a link on the Bandcamp page to my YouTube channel, which we were talking about earlier. I have a couple of silent movie play-alongs there. Just if you're interested to check that out, it's all the electric piano stuff, and I have my
Yep.
albums up on there as well. Um, I guess yeah, be on the lookout for my new tape. Bioluminescence should be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. I don't want to promise that if it doesn't, but that'll be coming out on Neverwood Records in the near future, and it's a little bit different, but it's still got the backbone of Chanterelle, I guess, the essence.
Yeah, I'm sure people are really, yeah, they'll be on board with it, I imagine.
Everybody seems so receptive to things. I hope so.
Yeah. And do you have any like social media for Chanterelle or anything like that?
I don't at the moment. I don't have any for my own self in my personal life either, so it makes it hard
Right.
to. I'm mostly just Bandcamp and YouTube. That's where you can find me for the time being.
Totally, yeah. And I believe there's like a contact page on Bandcamp. That's how I got in touch with you. If anyone's
Yep.
dying to praise Tony about how good their work is, use that. Let them know.
Yeah, send it on through.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I had a really fun time. It's so much variety in what I talk about with the guest. It was nice to get into the nitty gritty on music theory, things like that.
Oh yeah, I had a great time. I love talking about this stuff. to somebody that
Awesome.
like wants to talk about it, instead of just
Yeah,
rambling to some
people want to
friend that doesn't
listen.
know.
It's nice. It's nice to have an outlet for it. I totally know what you mean. Yep. All right. Well, take care. And to the listeners, thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Alright everyone, that was Tony from Chanterelle giving us all of the juicy details on their robust and exciting musical life. What a great guest! I think we had such a great balance of all the things that make me so excited to do the show, from tech to the theory to the weird mushroom facts and foraging stories. I feel like we really got it all. And we also got to hear a new song from their upcoming release Bioluminescence, which was so cool. That song is titled The Crab Apple, by the way. And this is in fact Trev from the future speaking now, at least in relation to what you just heard. So I have listened to this song, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Totally accurate prediction on my part. It's a great song. And seems like everything Tony mentioned about the new album lines up with how this track felt, and that's got me really excited to hear the rest of the release later this year. So be sure to check out chanterelle.bandcamp.com. It's spelled just like the mushroom. There's also a link there to Tony's YouTube on that Bandcamp page if you want to check out those silent film soundtracks. I believe that the YouTube is also just called Chanterelle, but you get videos of mushrooms when you search that. So the Bandcamp page is an easy way to get there. But I checked out the silent film soundtracks, and I really loved them. It's such a cool and unique experience. So go give Tony's music a listen. Go check out those cool little videos. Keep an eye out for the new release. I believe it sounds like there's a physical release along with the digital one coming out at the same time later this year, so you can snag that if you're quick. Really exciting. And as always, if you want to keep up with me, you can follow Castbitten_ on Instagram, or just search Castbitten on YouTube, or castbitten.bandcamp.com. It's got everything. All of that. That'll let you keep up to date with what I've got going on. Some news in my world. I just announced this week online that I'll be releasing tapes for my full-length album, Seize It With Thine Own Hands. Those will be coming out through the spectacular Uncomfy Records. More details later, so just keep an eye out. Just keep checking in on that. But I'm really excited. It's such a fun opportunity. And in Castbitten news, I don't want to spill the beans just yet, but in a couple weeks, I've got something really exciting to announce. I just can't wait. I think people are going to like it. I think folks are going to be just clamoring to hear more about it. Yeah, I really can't wait. But alright, that's enough talking. I've been talking plenty. Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for listening, for checking things out. Get out of here.